So we're back again, this time to talk about Dark Age, book 5 in the Red Rising Saga. I was so glad this book was ready for me when I finished Iron Gold, because that was a sucky place to have to wait.
Yeah, it's nice that we didn't have to, at least not for this one.
Nope, not for this one. So let's talk about it today. Hey there! Welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where a father and son get together and talk about fantasy, science fiction, and other nerdy things we enjoy. We are here to talk about science fiction today, specifically Dark Age, Book 5 of Pierce Brown's Red Rising Saga. This is a full spoiler episode. If you haven't read this book, we recommend you go read it and then come back and hear what we have to say about it. We're going to talk quite in depth about it, not necessarily a full page by page summary, but we're going to hit all the major points, and we hate ruining things for people. Zach, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right. You keep saying we're talking about this, like, definitely on the sci-fi side of things, and you're not wrong. Like, it's definitely sci-fi. But I stand by, it's a lighter sci-fi. Like, it's not heavy on the sci-fi. It feels like fantasy, even though it is sci-fi.
I don't know that it feels like fantasy. For me, how it does differ from a lot of sci-fi is it's very action driven. It's about the amazing story that's happening here, and it doesn't get caught in a lot of the typical science fiction elements, ideas, and themes. It's more epic fantasy in the style of the narrative.
Yeah, that's the thing. It checks off most of the boxes of how the story is told of epic fantasy, but instead of a magic otherworld setting, the otherworldness is space and future tech.
I think this is like tailor-made for something that could be adapted to television or to the big screen. It's very cinematic. You can see these things happening in front of you. I would love to see a Red Rising movie or a TV series.
Someday,
Of course, we don't know how it all ends, so it might suck at the end.
It won't.
Hey, that didn't stop Game of Thrones.
It won't suck at the end. I have faith. I have faith in this one.
You have faith. All right. That's good. That's good. You're drinking something. I am not. I'm on break now. I had coffee earlier. I'm not drinking anything at the moment. What? St. Patrick's
Nothing
Day?
special.
Is that why you got the green going?
No, I just didn't want to have it in the can. It's Mountain Dew Baja Blast. That's all.
I think it is St. Patrick's Day, though, isn't it?
Nope, that's tomorrow.
Oh, so close.
But by the time we release this, St. Patrick's Day will be probably long gone.
True. Do you do anything for St. Patrick's Day? Have your corned beef and cabbage, or chase some leprechauns, or hunt for shamrocks?
No, if I am out in public, I'll probably put on a little bit of green. Not because I'm feeling festive, but because I don't like people attacking me in public. Which also,
we never really did anything for St. Patrick's Day growing up. That wasn't a thing.
No, the closest I think I've done is like go have a beer.
When we lived in New Orleans, there's a St. Patrick's Day parade. This was, of course, before you were born, where they literally would throw cabbages and potatoes and stuff from the float. It was funny. Okay. Moving along, let's talk about Dark Age. And hey, everybody, if you enjoy our conversation, don't forget to let us know by liking the episode. In fact, you could just do it right now. And then if you disagree later, you can take it back.
And if you forget to take it back, like, that's fine.
It's totally fine. And if you haven't subscribed, we hope you will. We love having all these people with us, just sharing in the fun. Dark Age was fun. It was dark, but it was fun.
Yeah, I consistently like second books where things go bad. And while this is kind of the fifth book, it's also the second book in the second set of books. So things go bad.
That sounded all very confusing there.
I mean, if you've read it, you know what that means. If you haven't, you might be a little confused. Google it.
So we left off with things pretty much a mess. We've got Darrow and Severo basically committing to go different directions now. Severo's done with this nonsense. He came with Darrow to finish the war, and they failed. They finished the Ash Lord, but learned he wasn't the real threat anymore.
Worse, they learned that Pax and Electra were taken, and Severo's like, I gotta go fix that.
Yep. But Darrow is like, okay, we got two big things of news that were shared with us here: that our kids were kidnapped, and that our men on Mercury are in the crosshairs now of Atalantia's fleet. They're gonna be pulverized. So do we go save two kids or millions of soldiers who have been depending on us and following us for 10 years?
And who are largely where they are right now due to Darrow's decisions.
And the sucky Senate.
Little bit.
But they wouldn't be on Mercury at all without Darrow
Correct.
defying the will of the Senate. So you're right. Severo, this here we're seeing some difference in values and personality. Severo says, "It's my kid. I'm going to get my kid. You know, if Pax happens to be there, that's fine. But I'm going to get my kid." And he is like really disappointed that Darrow is choosing to go to Mercury.
Yeah. There's really nothing that has changed between these two people's value systems, but they finally can kind of come into more clash with each other because Severo, being very loyalty driven, has given that loyalty to Darrow time and time and time again. But he's got other loyalties, and at this point, his family, his kids, are more important to him, and kind of rightfully so.
But this is also why, and we can go back to the original trilogy, why Darrow was the right one to lead the movement, not Ares when Severo was playing that role. Because those priorities, Darrow is willing to sacrifice his own needs for the greater good of the cause. Severo has done that before, but he's now saying enough's enough. I'm going after what I need, what my family needs. Screw the rest.
Now, at the same time, there's a little bit of a slightly darker underbelly to their motivations here because they're both taking what personally to them is the easier path. Severo would rather go pursue his own personal family, his slightly selfishness, and get out of things. He would rather pursue his what he needs than that sense of duty to the military that he's given so much for already. Darrow would rather go fight for the men and women who have been with him for 10 years than face the emotional mess that is him and his son. He's like, yes, that needs to be solved and it needs to do this. It's easier for me to fall into this role that I've been playing and what I think is being demanded of me than it is to fall into this role that I have and have been kind of neglecting of fatherhood. It's not at the front of their minds, but it is there.
It's an interesting take. I can't say that I agree with that. I have a different perspective I'm going to throw out here. But I value what you said, and there is some awkwardness for sure between Darrow and Pax, and stuff that he's gonna have to fix somehow. And certainly that's important to him, but he's not quite sure how to do it right. You're right. But I think these decisions have a lot more to do with their wives. Severo knows Victra in this circumstance is losing her mind, is going to go off doing whatever crazy stuff is there, and honestly is going to expect his butt to be by her side helping her fix this. That's their relationship. Darrow knows his wife is very capable, does not need to be treated like a damsel in distress, does not need him to swoop in to save the day. She's quite capable. And so he's willing to trust that I'm going to go do what I have to do. She's going to do what she needs to do. And it'll work out. He's not abandoning Pax. He believes she's going to take care of that. And he's going to take care of what she can't.
Everything you said is technically true. However, the implied subtext that you're saying Victra is a damsel in distress and needs Severo to go in.
I didn't say that about
I know
Victra.
you didn't say that. But you said you set up the Severo and Victra conversation, and then you moved over to how Darrow views Mustang, about how she doesn't need him to swoop in. She doesn't need that. It's like, that is correct.
But you're ignoring what I said about Victra first.
No, I'm not. What I'm highlighting that I don't want that possible subtext to be there. What you said was correct, and you are not wrong. I am re-highlighting Victra. Also, yes, very capable. All this. She expects Sever to be there. You are correct.
Yes.
None of that is wrong. There was the way you
And where's
worded
your point?
it. The way you worded it immediately went into there. It felt like there was an implied, yeah, she's demanding Severo come back and save. And I'm like, no, that's no. And I know that's not what you meant. So I'm trying to highlight that for you.
I'm not sure everybody else would have read that
When you
inference that you apparently picked up on.
when you set up two things and have them kind of compare contrast, and then you talk about the merits of one and then immediately go into what the other is avoiding, it leads a certain level of implication.
Let's move on. I hear what you're saying. That's not what I said at all. I understand why you're saying it that way, and I think most of our viewers are going, Zach, let it go. So they're going different directions. Severo, he leaves on his own. Everybody else stays with Darrow. I'm remembering that right, aren't I? Severo's he's the one who's basically abandoning the rest of them to go do what he thinks is more important.
Mostly. I mean, like, some died on Venus. And I think some do, like, peel off, but for the most part, everyone's sticking
they've lost a number of people along the way for various things that have happened already.
There's really not that many.
It was
period,
mostly peons
at this point.
Extras.
Well,
red shirts.
Even so, it's enough that, like, one small ship, kind of an infiltrator team, are really going in. It's a couple of people. It's Darrow, Thraxa, Tongueless, Alexander.
We've not talked about it all.
We haven't talked about Alexander. We haven't talked about Darrow's niece. What's her name?
Rona.
We haven't talked about either of those yet.
Yeah. So let's talk about them now.
Ignored them last book.
This is an interesting thing. Alexander is the grandson, I believe. The grandson
or nephew, one of those.
I think it's grandson of
Orn Al Arcos, the Rage Knight.
Yes, the man, the former Rage Knight, who had trained, kind of in secret, trained Darrow in the Willow Way, and really turned him into a specimen of fighting, and died badly
at the Triumph of Mars.
Yes, it was very poorly done. So Alexander is definitely on the rebellion side, and he has really turned into something. He's quite capable. He's also a little, perhaps, overconfident. We get the impression he's also quite beautiful. He's quite something to look at, and he's all in to help Darrow with all of this stuff. I think Darrow feels just a little bad using him because, siding with him already cost him his grandfather's life. It's like, so he kind of feels he doesn't want bad things to happen to Alexander, but he needs any help he can get.
And in the way that things have been, how close they've been and working together, Alexander is to Darrow a little bit how Lysander was to Cassius. These kind of people that they're training up with them, behind them, this next generation, and trying to impart upon them certain things of themselves. Alexander is one of the main places in this past decade where, while Darrow's been away from Pax, that Darrow's got to try and be a little bit of a father.
So, father by proxy. I can't be with Pax, but I can be with you. Come here, my boy. Let me mentor you.
Kind of, yeah. It's a very close bond relationship. Not quite that father-son, but not quite an older brother. Definitely closer to the paternal relationship.
Yeah. Now, Rona is also with him. Rona is his niece. So, Kieran, that's his brother.
Yeah.
Kieran's daughter. And she idolizes Uncle Darrow. She's thrilled to have the opportunity to go along. He promised Kieran he wouldn't let harm come to her, but he has no choice. I mean, he actually legitimately tries not to bring her with him to Mercury, and she works some shenanigans to end up along anyway.
She's also worked her ass off to be capable in this.
Yes.
She is a red. She's not augmented like Darrow was. She hasn't gone through a whole bunch of surgery and stuff, but she has gone through surgery and processes and training to be a more capable red in a new way that we've kind of seen through here, where there's this like class of reds now that are basically big mech drivers. These are Gungam fights.
So So here we go. They are going to Mercury. They get to Mercury. They come up with a plan for Mercury. But it's not like they just walk into Mercury, hi guys, we're here to help, and everything's fine.
No.
Because there are other forces involved. And those forces would be
Not just Atlantia and crew, but now we also get
the
the
Rim.
payoff from what Lysander was doing in the last book, and the Moon Lords are coming in and joining Atlantia and fleet, at least partially. There's
So
some
we
tentative
do,
talks
yeah,
initially, and then okay, we'll fight together.
we do have a merging. And part of how that merging is solidified is Lysander agreeing to go down to Mercury in basically another Iron Rain kind of situation. He's going to go along with Atalantia's forces, primarily led by Ajax. We haven't talked about Ajax yet.
No, we have not.
Ajax,
Ajax is a monster
he sucks.
in a number of ways.
But in Lysander's memories as a child, Ajax was one of his favorite people. He was a friend. He was someone he played with. It's I sense there were some awkward tensions where if you read between the lines, Ajax didn't necessarily like Lysander all that much, but Lysander was the heir to the sovereign, so I play nice with you because I have to.
Ajax was put in the position to be his friend, not that they were actually friends necessarily, but they did have a
Right.
bond of certain level of friendship.
And the dynamic has shifted a little here now, so you're not the sovereign now, and things can be a little different. Lysander in this book very much is coming up awkwardly as okay, you're the heir to the throne.
You have a legitimate
However,
claim, and that is a problem.
Atalantia is the one leading the cause to put down the Republic and bring things back. So she clearly has eyes on the throne. Lysander is the one trying to bridge the gap between the Rim Lords and the core and Atalantia's forces. And he's partly doing this by saying, "Hey, I will do what it takes to prove myself to you that I'm willing to work with you and not against you, and that I will not be trying to take the throne from you." And the key thing they demand is that he throw himself into this battle. He is not a peerless Scard,
No, he never. I mean, he was like 10 when we left this story, maybe a little younger.
but we
He
learn
never
apparently
went to
there
the
are
Institute.
exceptions. There are ways to get your Scar without going to an institute.
And I think that's been largely kind of what things have been for this past decade or so, as it's been a time of war. We don't have to. The Institute started as a way to gain your scar when there wasn't wars going on, when it was being prepared for conquest and wars and things like this to be around. But the original thing was earning this through being iron gold, through being that conquering ideal. And so if you're just having great feats of valor and going out in battle and being successful, like you can earn your scar.
And he's going to earn his Scar by going into this Iron Rain. He has no experience with something like this. He's never done anything like this, but he is capable. He knows how to use a razor.
Thanks, Cassius.
He's got skills that in this book we're going to learn about that we have not learned about before.
He's got some loon training. He is in many,
Octavia
many ways
trained him
the
as
heir.
her heir. Yeah.
From a very young age, he was already getting groomed for that. And it shows that he is very capable.
So, one of those things we're going to learn about here, let's just talk about it now, is something to do with his mind. What exactly do they call it? When you get into, let's see, do I have it in my notes? Crap. I don't think I have it in my notes.
I don't remember what it's called. It's a weird, like, semi meditative, semi memory mind palace
It's a way to
thing,
maximize your full mental potential.
but it's also like very, it is that meditation, like controlling your physical body with your mind, where
Hmm.
like you can slow down your heart enough to stop poison kind of stuff if you're good
Right.
enough with it.
And perfect recollection. of everything that's happened around you, and to be able to look at the scenario in front of you and see all the possibilities and instantly figure out the best option to take. And if you apply this to battle, in essence, you could also almost look at things in a hyperspeed sense of reality. You can see things and everything else around you slows down
Being
because
able to
you're
turn your
processing so
brain
fast.
into a slightly predictive or index is an insanely useful skill, and there's a good reason
The
why.
mind's eye. That's
That's
what they
it.
call it. Yeah. And it's
Um,
something that Octavia knew how to do, and she trained him up in the same way. And apparently, it's a coveted thing.
It's also a
Very few people
secret
have
thing.
this ability. You have to be taught it. You can't just figure it out. And as far as he knows, he's the only one that now knows it. Octavia knew it, and she taught it to him. We're going to learn over the course of the book that's not true. A few others also, now they all learned it from Octavia, except I believe Lysander starts teaching it to someone else.
Lysander semi makes a deal to eventually maybe teach it to someone else,
Yeah.
and he does get there later, but not really in this book.
Yeah. Okay. But it's a really advanced thing to have in your toolkit, and he's going to use it a few times here over the course of the book to help him out quite a bit. It's hard to slip something past Lysander. We can
Correct.
definitely say the mind's eye helps it. It's almost impossible to fool him. That's going
But
to come up very sadly later in this
he's
book.
simultaneously a little bit of like slimy politician-y and covert operative-y and capable fighter-y. He's a lot of different people all rolled into one eventually.
He still sucks.
Oh
And
yeah.
as we get further and further into this book, he sucks more and more.
And simultaneously, he gets chances and opportunities that I would be like, I could like him. He could redeem himself, and then he ruins it again.
If you believed his cause was the right cause, he just gets better and better and better over the course of the book.
If his cause was the right cause, he's better than Darrow in many ways.
Yeah. All right. So they do the rain to get down there. So they're part of the group now that's facing off with Darrow.
Let's pull back just a second.
Okay.
Because we have to save Orion first. Orion's been captured.
Oh, yeah. Wow. In a brutal
Orion's
way.
being like tortured.
Yeah. Her whole fleet. She was the one that was with the diminished fleet that was still left around Mercury. So when Atalantia's fleet showed up, massively outnumbering them, there is a hopeless battle that takes place. All the ships are destroyed. Most of the people are dead, but Orion is taken captive.
We didn't really talk about Orion last book, but it's really cool to see that like way back from Golden Sun, this blue that first stepped up with Darrow has really continued to step up and is the space battle mind. She is part of what is keeping this war effort alive. She's the other half of the Darrow lily.
There's a name for Imperata, I think, the head of the fleet. She's been empowered as the top naval officer of the rebellion. Well, of the Republic now. We don't have to call it the rebellion.
But we get her down. She's heavily traumatized. Also assures Darrow she's fine. That doesn't work out so well
she's
eventually.
Not fine. Darrow knew she wasn't fine, but he needed her. So he rolled with it.
So Mercury is this place where they make stuff, apparently. It is the fun, cool engineering R&D side of the solar system. Especially because of one man called Glarastes.
Yeah, Glarastes is a genius.
The master builder.
Not a gold.
Nope, I think he's an orange.
I think you're right. The oranges are more the engineers, the builders.
Mechanics and stuff.
Yeah. But he's next level. I mean, he's got a mind. He also likes his indulgences. He's, rich for all that he's been able to accomplish.
Well, and we learned that apparently way back, there's these great, massive mechanical, like terraforming things that have come about. And that's cool, but they're also potentially awful if you were to use them in bad ways.
Yeah, the terraforming devices, I mean, we haven't had a lot of information about how the terraforming was done. But all of these planets, except Earth, have been, drastically changed so that there
Habitable.
there are
Mostly.
biospheres that are livable on all of them. And with what we know with science, that's impossible for some of these. Like, there's no way Mercury could be turned into a livable biosphere.
No.
But we're saying it's far enough in the future. They figured out how, and these
notably,
machines are part of it.
They don't turn all of Mercury into livable. There are certain parts that are directly sunward that are a desert wasteland and you can't.
Yeah, if I recall just my actual science, Mercury is a planet that doesn't rotate.
It does, however, it spins around the sun fast enough with its rotation that it effectively does not rotate.
Basically, one side, no
There's
matter
a
as it goes around, one side is always facing the sun.
Yeah, there's a sunward and a spaceward side,
Leeward.
generally at least.
Yeah.
Just because its rotation is the same-ish.
But, okay, so when the terraforming was done, the machinery used for the major transformational changing, at least in Mercury's case, those things were destroyed, except they weren't.
And Octavia intentionally just kind of buried them and was like, I'm going to keep these in case I ever need to use them.
Now, I don't think she did. I think it was her family did, and it's been a family secret because her family's been a sovereign all this time. So she has known, and she passed that information on to Lysander. He knows as well. Somehow, Darrow's people find out too.
And I think Darrow and them find out in part through Glarastes, because he's known about this. He does this.
Yes, Glarastes knew it, but
they find out through the archive of stuff. Mustang technically, I think, finds it.
Ah, okay. Glarastes knew about it because he's the master maker and he's here and all. Darrow and his people decide to go to him, and they want access to those. They want to use them because they are outmatched. They have no fleet supporting them. Atalantia is going to come on down and do some very, very bad things. So they want to use these storm gods, I think is what they call them as slang. And they want to activate them, but only at level 1.
Yeah, apparently
which will create it'll create a big storm. Okay. Make kind of evening the playing field. It diminishes their air power, and it'll turn into just a fight on the ground with bad vision, and it'll give Darrow's people a chance.
Yeah. You go to a certain level, you lose some visibility. You go a little bit higher, there's enough electrical discharge that you can't really do comms very well. Right. A lot of things work out, but if you go high enough, you start building like massive hurricanes everywhere. I think they call it
a hypocane. Yeah. Just this. Ooh, I'm going to be doing a tiny talk soon on disaster movies. And that's what this is. You create something like this, massive disaster movie.
And turns out when you leave the traumatized, angry war vet in charge of these things and tell her, only go so far. If you go too high, you'll start killing innocents and everyone else. They go, yeah, but I want to kill everyone. And
that's so Orion. Again, as Blue, she can mentally link into the technology, the electronics and stuff. And so she's the one tapping in through the network to control the storm gods. Glarastes gave them access, which means he's actively helping the Republic. But up until just a little while ago, he was still on the side of the old regime. Mercury was just conquered.
Glarastes is a little bit hedging his bets.
We're conquered. And so, okay, I'll help you. But don't, you've got to promise me. You've got to give me your oath. You won't take it higher than the base level. And Darrow gives that oath. And you're right. Orion, she goes off the deep end and turns it up to 11.
We get some great fight scenes, some great combat for a while. Like, this is action-packed for a bit. Serafina, gone. Missed. Love it. It was a great moment.
The blink of an eye.
It was such a just like footnote that it was like, that feels so good. Darrow almost kills Lysander, not even knowing it's him.
I have to tell you something. When Serafina scene happened, I totally thought of you telling people don't slip on the ice. You get the reference. It's
rude, but it's true. Uh,
So yeah, people are getting taken out, and but as this thing goes all the way up to the top, everyone's in peril now.
mhm.
And this has to stop. The whole planet basically is going to be reset to nothing at this level of storm god destruction. The only one who can stop it is Orion, but Orion's up in space on the ship. How do you do that? Well,
It's
Darrow
not in
had
space.
a
Yeah.
backup because, and this tells us deep down, he knew it was possible Orion might go too far.
Mhm.
So he has a failsafe. The failsafe is basically I can yank her from the network. Just I can shut it down just like that. Break
Now,
the connection.
the drawback for that, it'll also kill her.
I mean, her mind is all out in that. Cut it off, her mind's gone. You basically are, yeah, turning her into a vegetable. She dies. That's it. He doesn't want to have to do that. He reaches out to her. It's a tense moment. He's telling her to stop, back it down, and she's like, burn it all! Because she's been so damaged and so horrified from what was done to her. And yeah, he flips the switch. So he kills Orion. It stops the storms, but not like instantaneously. They have to now run out of gas.
And through this, it is a hard fight. There are a number of problems. There's like two main-ish cities on Mercury, and one of them is kind of the last bastion that we're defending, and the other is getting flooded and everyone's going to die. And so Alexander takes a couple of people with him at Darrow's approval, but
It's a
like it's a
suicide
very
mission, though.
tense approval. It's like
They're all
you're gonna
like,
go
you
die.
won't
You're not gonna
survive this.
succeed. But it goes off to go save as many people as he can, while Darrow then rushes to the city to defend. Darrow does something stupid crazy, like 22 hours of straight combat or something, jumping from fight to fight to fight to fight, and ends up injured and exhausted. And ultimately, they win the day for now. It's
Hmm.
not that they win the war, but they do stave off that assault, the battle, and there's a kind of break.
And they have a shield up protecting them. They
Yes.
haven't got off Mercury, but he's got all the men he could save. Men used in just the humanity. There's men and women, but he's got all of the army that he was able to save and bring with him to this one city. And they have a protective dome. The fleet's still out there. The ground troops that have survived the hypercane, if any did, they're still out there. But we have a pause. You're
And
right.
in this pause, Lysander is left for dead, face heavily scarred by Darrow unknowingly almost killing him before running off, leaving him for dead. Uh, Ajax, at Atlantea's orders, had kind of rigged things up to hopefully get Lysander killed,
Mm-hmm.
or kill him himself, even.
It sucks to be a loon, man.
And Lysander, with just a small crew of people, basically starts wandering into the horrible, unlivable, radiation packed desert.
Now, why radiation packed?
Sunside.
What?
Mostly Sunside.
Not just Sunside. Atalantia was using nukes too.
That too.
That's where the radiation comes from
The
primarily.
irradiated desert.
Yeah. So, it's it's not a good thing, but the story does a great thing with this circumstance because, and I'm jumping over a number of things, but
Oh yeah.
eventually we're gonna have Lysander falling in with a group of survivors of Darrow's group, including
Alexander.
Alexander, all imprisoned together under the forces of Atlas.
Atlas Al Ra.
Okay,
We
and
haven't
so
talked about it again before.
Atlas is,
The Fear Knight.
yeah. What's his connection to Atalantia? They're
So
related.
loosely,
Okay,
because Atlas is one of the Moon Lords removed.
isn't he the Ash Lord's brother?
I no, he's Romulus's brother.
Oh, Oh, yes, you're right. You're right. Thank you. Thank you. Solidifying that connection.
Because way back when the Ash Lord burned Rhea, one of the kind of peace agreement portions was that they took Atlas as a child
That's
to live
right.
basically as a
Yep.
ward to Octavia.
And so this is how he became connected with all of them, though,
Atlas
too.
is a
There's
monster.
history.
Aja, who is the Ash Lord's daughter, who we killed at the end of Morningstar, also a monster. Both of those were forced to pair to create Ajax, the monster.
Yeah. This is all twisted, nasty, complicated stuff and has created a whole bunch of really twisted, dark people. But Atlas, we see, has some qualities that stand out amongst some of these gold. So he's got these prisoners now. He's on Mercury. He's doing his thing. Lysander eventually has the opportunity to reveal himself to Atlas and introduces a plan of what we could do here to take advantage of the fact that I'm with a bunch of Darrow's guys in jail and they don't know who I am. God dang it.
You
And
did it
the thumb
again.
thing went up and I'm frozen again. I got to find a way to turn that off so it does not keep happening.
I think it's funny.
Except it freezes my screen. Anyways, this plan is brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
And it's almost shocking that it works. It was really taking a flyer on it. But he has Alexander and his crew totally hook, line, and sinker, believing he's just a guy who was here and got caught up in things and isn't on anyone's side, but he's willing to help them and go along. Now, when I was reading this, I actually thought this was a little bit weak.
Okay.
In that, okay, somehow Lysander meeting one-on-one with Atlas overpowers him and knocks him out and then runs and frees them from their cells. It's like, really? I'm like, that seemed a bit hard to buy. And yet they buy it. Now, not all of them did, but Alexander does. He's like, okay, all right, yeah, let's do that. Of course, they don't call him
He's going under
Lysander.
a
They
different
call
name.
him,
I don't remember what the name
Cain
is.
or something. I don't know.
Kane, something.
Anyways, they go ahead and take Atlas with them as their prisoner and do a daring escape using Atlas's map on his data pad, which this is all stuff Atlas and Lysander had figured out and worked out. But Atlas is willingly putting himself at jeopardy here.
Mm-hmm.
He allows Lysander to take him out, knowing they're going to take him to Darrow. Why? This is where I'm impressed with Atlas. What's in Atlas's mind here?
I mean, there's a number of things in Atlas's mind. Ultimately, the way that Atlas views and sees things and sees this situation, to me, paints a clear picture of the previous Night Ordership, and that Lorne had trained Darrow, basically. And you see some parallels between them and the way that they view honor and different things. Atlas here is to Lorne what the Jackal was to Darrow. The conniving, willing to saw off your own hand, semi-psychotic but more sociopathic tendency to find a way to a solution, a victory, and do what it takes to get there. And so Atlas sees the opportunity to get in under behind the shields, also giving a certain level of backing Lysander's play if he succeeds, to maintain a certain level of power and survival with Atlantia and that whole thing, but also plausible deniability. There's a lot of different little threads in this opportunity.
The other thing that I noticed about Atlas here was he was willing to do something that puts his own personal well-being in considerable jeopardy for the cause, for what he believes is best to see happen. It's not all about Atlas.
Well, and
there are plenty of golds where it's all about them, not Atlas. That's not how he functions.
Even go to the extent it's not just that it's not all about Atlas, but he also knows it's not all about Atlantia. He's not about whoever's in charge. He has a vision. He knows where this could go, and he'll do what he needs to and what he sees to be what is best. Usually that does mean aligning with a certain power or following certain orders in his way, but he's willing to finagle things for what he thinks will be the best outcome.
Now, I want to call us out for our continued mangling of one person's name in here.
Do it.
You just said Atlantia, and I keep saying Atalanta, but it's Atalantia.
Atalantia. There you go.
There's a lot of syllables to her name. Atalantia. We'll try to get it straight.
We won't succeed. I don't like her enough to like pronouncing her name correctly. That's fine.
So we're going to leave this part of the story.
Yeah. Go away from Mercury.
It takes us to some very dark stuff at the end, and I want to talk about that at the end when we talk about all the really dark stuff at the end.
Yeah.
Let's jump back to other plot lines. We've got, Ephraim and the kids. Where did they go? What happened? Well, it leads us into another part of the story that I think was lightly touched on in Iron Gold, but becomes significant in Dark Age, and that's the Obsidian Rebellion.
In Iron Gold, the Obsidians were getting fed up. They were facing some of the biggest casualties of the war. Sephi was not happy with Darrow's decision to launch the Iron Rain.
She participated in it.
Yeah, but she was also there, part of the knowledge and decision of what was going on. And she was lied to because she didn't know about the emissaries that were like turned away kind of thing. But she figured it out and knew about it. And because Darrow didn't say anything and was willing to throw away all these Obsidian lives, she's like, we're done. Obsidian needs to live for Obsidian.
And the first sign of that is in the Senate, where the Obsidians stop supporting Virginia and the Sovereign's agenda. They don't necessarily side with Vox Populi either, but they start just, we're for Obsidians now. And we're going to do our own things.
It's not so much like it's seen as, I think there's a chapter or something called Obsidian Rising. Like it's seen as this new rising rebellion, these various things. But in a lot of ways, it's really just Obsidian seceding. They're just pulling back out.
But on Mars itself, it plays out.
Yes.
In that they actually are going to actively invade and take over some of the mines. They're going to try to take over a lot of the mines and claim this territory for their own, along with the wealth of the mines, the helium that they can then sell. And in so doing, finally have their own land, their own place, something worthy of the sacrifice they have made, not some barren rock island somewhere that like you were tossed a bone. It's like, no, we deserve better. And here we go. This is what we're going to get now.
Sephi and the Obsidians are not behind the original kidnapping of Pax and Electra. They do, however, find the downed ship of Ephraim, Pax, and Alexa and take them into protective custody.
That's where we come into this here in Dark Age, yeah. So that's what happened to the kids. That's what happened to Ephraim. Ephraim's still alive. The kids survived. I mean, they did crash, but the Syndicate didn't get them. Yeah, Sephi's people got them and kept them.
I think
Ephraim has been put back together.
Yeah, I think they're pretty okay and good, kind of, for them, besides the fact that they're technically prisoners.
Yeah, I mean, they're not mistreated in any way.
No. I mean, Electra gets to train with the Obsidians and is enjoying it. Pax does too, but is making a point to be a political monster.
Yeah. Ephraim gets an interesting role.
He gets a job offer.
Yeah, more or less.
It's not an offer.
Job mandate. They want Ephraim to train up a special battalion of the Obsidians to basically be a hit squad with skill.
Yeah, and it's a funny thing where it's basically like, yeah, we can kill people. We're really good at kill people. But we're really like kind of honorable about making sure we see people and kill people. You're small and scrawny and have made a living being able to infiltrate, cheat, dismantle, disable, and kill people and organizations from behind the scenes and not getting killed.
That's right.
So
I need you to hammer. We want to be stealth.
We need to
We
teach all of these people who are very much go in there and do our thing, um, to be conniving little trickster assassins.
turn us into the kind where we can come in, do our job, get out, and no one knows we were there. That's a dangerous element to give Obsidians
It's
because they
also
already have such ability, such power. Ooh.
it's also a dangerous job to give a gray to teach obsidians this.
But he's like, okay, I don't have much choice. So if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it well. We're
And
going to
he
go for it.
negotiates his contract to work out really well in his favor.
And what does he get out of it? What does he ask for? He gets a ship, Snowball, and he gets
Certain freedoms, good
2
treatment for
women
him,
back,
Pax, Electra, but then eventually the promise that
Volga
Volga
and Lyria,
and Lyria.
which he doesn't even know when he asks for this, but they have already liberated those two. They got understanding that they were being transferred from where I
Yeah,
believe Victra's
they're
people had them.
technically still under Victra's like watch and prisonhood, but it's like they're being transported in a Victra ship to Mars. Sephi has basically negotiated and has been negotiating in the background quietly with Victra of being like, yeah, we're gonna do a prisoner exchange, and we're gonna work out in our favor so that Victra's gonna support Obsidian Rising, and we'll give her daughter back. And Pax too, I guess.
There you go. Sephi, man, she has a point in leading this rebellion, in making these moves, but in so doing, she basically cuts herself off from all the good support and help she could have had, and she's on her own. And boy, does that go south.
Very.
Because she's got machinations going on right under her nose that she doesn't realize.
And they've been there for a long
They
time.
have, waiting for an opportunity like this. And she's gonna get betrayed. And in will swoop in the leader of a group of Obsidians that we have heard about before, but almost like as
The
a myth,
boogeyman.
as a boogeyman. Yeah, and no, the Fa, is that the name?
Volsung Fa is
Yeah,
his
Wholesome
name.
Fa comes on, and he is a specimen. Now we see him first up on a ship with a bunch of mutated Obsidians.
Kind of. It's like it's obsidians that have lived in deep space, not on a planet for so long that they've changed physiologically.
They can survive vacuum. I mean, they're really adapted. And they come and they just totally destroy Victra's ship.
Yeah.
That's a mess. That's a whole mess, that whole thing. They were very efficient. And that's going to lead to a need. This was where we were supposed to get Volga and Lyria to Mars. And instead, this whole attack ends up with Victra and Volga and Lyria and others on an escape pod. It was kind of a fun scene when they finally make it to Victra's escape pod, and Victra's here.
Yeah.
We didn't expect that. Whoops.
And so
but they all go down, and even that goes bad.
Yeah, they crash land. It's horrible. Most of them don't make it. Truthfully, 4 people make it. 3 only continue to make it. And a half. Well, and 2 halves in a weird way.
Are you talking about Figment?
That's the second half. The first half is the unborn child.
Yeah.
Because Victra's pregnant.
Dark
She's
age.
been very
man.
pregnant.
Dark age.
And we're not going to
This
talk
is one
about
of the darkest
all the
parts of
things.
this whole book.
This is one of the few moments where it's emotionally heavy. I've seen people call it out for being too far, and I kind of agree that it wasn't necessary the way it was. Doing it, I actually thought was painful, but great. Both sorry for a slight graphicness, I'm not going too deep, but brutal blunt force trauma to a head, plus a tree crucifixion. There's a certain element of that's just, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense why it was done in story. let alone anything else. So it felt like it was written in there
Hmm.
for a little bit of shock value to be that far.
I think it's also supposed to be reinforcing the emotional impact this will have on Victra. It's not just that her child died, it's what they did to her child on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm not far enough in to see the full ramifications of that yet, because
But
I'm only
it's
about 20% into Lightbringer, the next book.
okay.
But I expect there's going to be some impact from this.
But she and Severo have had 3 girls. This was their first son.
Severo doesn't even know it was a son.
Nope.
She actually had allowed him to believe it was another girl. She wanted to surprise him that it's a boy. We learned something interesting about golds, that they apparently have the ability to say nah when they start to go into labor, at least for quite a while.
At least to a
And
certain
she's been
extent.
like ready to have this child for days, and then finally it's got to come. But she's just been holding it back because we've been busy.
There's a certain level of like badass birthing, and we already knew Victor was badass, but seeing it on another level, and then a certain amount of, I think, badass of character, because she willingly kind of chooses a certain amount of vulnerability with Lyria.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was all nicely done, touching, and then totally destroyed by what happens afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh man, so that's, again, we don't have to talk about it in depth because anybody watching this, you've read the book. Unless you ignored me at the beginning, and then you're an idiot. I don't know why you're watching. But none of you are idiots, so I can say that because you're here because you're supposed to be. Oh wow, it was dark. And yeah, whew. When
We've got
Severo finds out, man,
yeah,
that's not going to be good.
we've got
That is
both
not going to be good. Doesn't happen in
mostly.
this book. He doesn't know. He thinks there's a kid. He's going to get a kid, you know.
I think at this point we have mostly dark moments to talk about, just moments that like our reaction, our various thoughts and feelings and opinions on some dark moments. There's one moment that I can think of, one interaction, scene, whatever, that is less dark and more finally comeuppance. That
Okay.
feels real good. And I wanted to talk about that one next, even though it's not necessarily next in order.
Now I do want to talk about the thing that goes up Lyria's nose.
You do want to talk about Figment?
So is that better to talk
You
about
can talk
now
about Figment
or
first. Talk about
okay?
Figment.
Because I mean, Figment was a what's the word? Same thing. Ephraim is a
Freelancer?
freelancer. Okay, Figment's a freelancer working for Victra, and dies in that crash. Almost isn't quite dead, but is dying, and intentionally makes it happen that this parasite, electronic robotic parasite that is inside Figment crawls out of Figment and into Lyria. Ew! But instantly Lyria's like, what the heck? And she's got something going on in her head now. And this is fascinating. And I sense it's going to go somewhere. And we don't get a lot of where it's going to go in this book. So I know more is to come. But we get a little of what's going on here. And I mean, it can talk to her in her head. It's giving her some abilities, but there's also something wrong with it. Its full potential is perhaps untapped, but that was an interesting thing to add to Lyria's character, and I liked it.
It's really interesting. I have to be very careful about talking about this because I don't want to even hint at any spoilers to you.
Yeah.
It also is a little bit violence and things, totally fine. Violence to characters are like, totally fine. Something about the metallic squid thing going like up her nose and then just in there, and it's like she's supposed to be okay with that. That one gives me a little bit of an ick. I don't know why.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay, talk about what you wanted to talk about, and then we're going to talk about a lot of dark stuff.
So Lyria goes a little bit warpath-y to save Volga and Victra, and ultimately also to save some Reds who are being kind of forced into abusive
Yeah,
breeding stock marriage
again, that was
situations.
dark, dude. Now you're talking about dark again.
Yeah, I have to talk to the dark to get to the comeuppance because it's a really nice moment of giving power to the not powerful with like cracking acid teeth and spitting it on people that are their would-be
Such badass.
abusers, going further
You have the
steps.
honor to be our sex wives.
Yeah, no.
Let's make more reds.
And eventually going to the point of going, this is where Harmony finally gets hers. Both ending that finally and
Thank
the red
goodness.
hand and all that, but also getting personal revenge for Lyria. How she saw Harmony was the one who actually killed like her brother,
Mm-hmm.
but also then killed the rest of her family indirectly.
Right.
And that great moment of she's stuck in a pit and you can hear the pit vipers coming out and we could kill her. No, we're going to walk away and let her scream.
Because those pit vipers, they're too old. They're not going to kill her. They're going to lay their babies in her. It's
And
like,
so
oh, the
she
worst
didn't really
possible.
have a way to get out of there,
That was
but
brilliant.
she probably died in agony a day or two later.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Lyria has really grown, coming into herself, her capabilities, her strength of character to do what needs to be done.
And
Yeah.
that's the big thing. She's not strong. She's not that capable, but she has the will of a red.
Yeah, don't mess with Red, man. Mess with Red and you'll be dead.
Something like that.
So, yeah, now let's get to some dark things. Where shall we start? Let's go back to the Obsidians.
Okay.
So, Sephi gets betrayed. People start dying. Things going bad. And Fa shows up.
Yep.
And we learn his claim.
Mm-hmm.
Who is he really? He's claiming he is
Ragnar's dad, which also would mean Sephi's dad.
yes. And he's staking, based on that, he's staking his claim to be the ruler of the Obsidians. His claim trumps hers. And she's led them the wrong way anyway. So he's going to take over. And, from Sephi's perspective, over my dead body. And from his perspective, okay. And brutally kills her.
They're already like a very Viking-esque.
Yeah, it was
custom.
totally out of the... If you've seen the show The Vikings, you've seen what's done to her on screen.
Yeah, he doubles down on what Gold kind of oppressed and forced into them already and works with tradition and custom and the mythos, and then eventually pretty easily defeats Sephi. And then alive.
And all her Valkyries then too, but yeah.
Does the whole bloody eagle
It was
thing.
terrible. Terrible. So she goes out in a horrible fashion. All of her supporters are taken down. The rest are on his side. Oh, and then you have Ephraim. Because Ephraim had been with people working things out, but now he's here to try to make things good.
He's trying to kind of broker peace and figure out a fix.
Because he'd gotten away from Sephi. He and the kids. We skipped over that, but they'd gotten away. He's come back as an emissary to try to bring her over to their side, and this all comes down while he's there. He's like, now what? Well, he has a chance. He decides, he's going to die. This is not good. But he has a chance to take them out with him.
Or at least to take Volsung Fa out.
Yep. So he basically, it's a suicide mission. He's going to set off a bomb. There's a chance he might survive.
Mm-hmm.
He's not trying to die, but major danger.
There's some small other things that happen. Like he lets out some Obsidians that were kind of war hero-esque, that were number 2s but had been imprisoned temporarily. And there is a small exodus of Obsidians who aren't potentially going to be loyal to Volsung Fa, but most of the Obsidians kind of get swayed over. And Ephraim does die in a blaze of glory. No, almost kind of hurting Volsung Fa. Like, Volsung Fa takes injury.
But my recollection is Ephraim doesn't actually go out in the blaze of glory. He goes out because Fa kills him. That's where
Your
Ephraim sees, oh
recollection,
crap, it didn't work.
yeah, your
And I think
recollection is
Fa
definitely
smushes his head.
closer, so it's likely. My brain said that Ephraim was like on death's door and does blow himself up because Fa does get like severely injured. Not enough
No,
to be deadly, but I
I
don't
have it in my
remember.
notes here. Actually, Ephraim gets severely injured, but he could have survived it. But he can't survive then when Fa steps over to him and rips his heart out of his chest and starts eating it in front of him. That's
Gotcha.
how Ephraim
Which
goes
is a
out.
problem, but also shows like in the weird enforcing those customs that Fa acknowledges Ephraim, this puny gray, as being
A worthy
a
enemy.
worthy opponent. And it was like,
Now I will take your power to my own.
yeah, it's awful, almost kind of nice in a terrible way.
But it pretty much lets us know there's one less POV to worry about.
But while we're on POVs and Ephraim, and he had a nice reunion with Volga and all that. And by the way, Volga also
Volga.
might have some things, because while we're on the topic of unknown identities and Volsung Fa being Ragnar's father, turns out, while kind of through like sperm donation ways, Volga's Ragnar's daughter?
Yeah, I think Ragnar has a lot of children,
Potentially.
apparently.
Ragnar
but Volga
had
is definitely
potentially a lot
one of
kids.
his. Yes.
I think Ragnar had a lot of potential kids. Many of them were killed.
Okay.
Because Volga's one of the only known still alive.
But she did not know
No.
of this at all.
Sephi did.
Sephi did. So, yeah, we've got that darkness. What other darkness do we want to talk about?
Let's go back to Mercury. No, we don't go back to Mercury yet. Let's go to Luna.
Okay. Let's go to Luna.
Because the Senate has still been a mess. And Mustang has
Wow, what
been.
a
We
scene,
skipped
man.
entirely over the fact that we get Mustang POVs in this chapter, in this book. The reason I knew we
Yes.
didn't get them last time was because we get Mustang. We start with Mustang.
Yep.
And it was a really fun moment to me of seeing. I liked Mustang's narrator.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I found that a lot of the narration and stuff still suffered in this book, but I liked Mustang's, and that disappears.
And it starts off with her, the letter that she's sending
Mhm.
to Mercury, to Darrow, which totally reinforced my take from the previous book.
Which is correct.
That she's telling him, I've got this, I've got my part, you do your thing. I'm working to try to send fleet to help you. Endure.
And
she's they did not part on good terms. And she's saying very clearly here, man, I love you. I'm with you. I got your back. Help is coming.
but Mustang, with Holiday's help and some various conniving things, does great work. Successfully kind of talks to Dancer and talks down the Vox Populi a little bit. There's going to be like
Yep.
a nice formal thing in Senate. Has captured certain people with Syndicate and figuring that out. Talks down Severo, who's been on a warpath, killing any and everyone in the Syndicate for everything that's been going on, and total criminal action. But she's like, I can bring you in and we can legitimize this to keep you okay, but you have to start taking orders.
So
and then
everything's going to come right now.
It all falls apart because of who's actually behind the Syndicate.
And this was a little bit of a shock. I didn't see this coming.
No, but this is where the fun little throwaway thing of, yeah, we've been cloning Sophocles for generations comes into play. Because, yeah, they've been cloning Sophocles for generations. They have cloning technology. And
But
who's psychotic enough to have done it?
There's a double shock here, though, that we first see. It's Lilith. And then, wait a second. Lilith? Lilith isn't smart enough to pull all this off. We thought she was dead. Clearly she's not. Look what just happened. And then to find out, actually behind Lilith is
a clone of the Jackal who was embedded in embryo in Lilith that she gave birth to. I think Severo has a great line. It might be Virginia. I don't remember which one, but it was something along the lines of,
it's a great line.
It took that to have him inside you, but like you did it, I guess. And it's
she had the hots for the Jackal. Well, it's the only way she can get him inside her.
of a line, but it's
It's
also just like
gross, but hilarious.
you won that argument right there.
So, and we do see that dynamic then of Lilith looking at him as my son now, but also my love,
It's a
and
little Oedipusy.
it's icky. And even the jackal is like, yeah, this is kind of messed up. You can see his mind. I mean, and let's talk about him a moment here. He's a clone. He sees himself as the jackal.
Mm-hmm.
He sees this as some great plan the jackal had. Jackal didn't have this plan. I don't think so, from what I've learned so far. I think this was Lilith just having a backup plan of
And
her own.
I'll go the further step. No, I can't quite go that further.
Okay.
There's another person pulling strings here
Okay.
that you will see as you continue reading the book you're currently reading.
Very good. I don't know enough yet, so let's not spoil it. That's right. Yeah. And so this is revealed when first the Senate gets taken out.
Dancer dies, Daxo dies.
Daxo goes out.
And it's
brutally.
a great, horrible thing of like, Dancer's poisoned. A bunch of senators are poisoned, which then leads to riots for the Vox Populi, and the people behead Daxo in the chaos and like use his head initially as like a beach ball in a rave.
I was, and they just brought us really to the point of genuinely valuing Daxo.
Mm-hmm.
There was times before where you're not quite sure how you feel about Daxo. I mean, he's on the good guy side, but he's also a little gold. And it's like, where exactly should I feel? And it had taken us to the point of, no, he's one of the true good guys. And then he's killed like that. It's like, holy cow, way to raise us up and then punch us down, Pierce.
Honestly, the only real reason that Mustang really lives is because Lilith and Jackal Part 2 want to gloat.
But she never caves and frail and scared. No, she's using whatever she can in any given situation. So when she gets the chance to talk to the Jackal, she flips him against Lilith pretty darn quick.
And she maneuvers situations and circumstance to have at least a good shot at killing both of them. Herself very injured and possibly dying, but escaping as well. And so we get to a point where Sevro's captured and it's not good. But she's out and it's good.
Yeah. She has to leave. She has to abandon Severo. She can't do anything to help, or she might be recaptured. So that's a dark spot to leave us.
And so we just we end up leaving the Republic and the Senate and Luna in this tumultuous mess of the Jackal succeeded his coup, but in the way of like the chaos of the masses is ruling, kind of. And he's in charge
There is a senator who's still kind of in charge, a leading force, kind of the second in command of Vox Populi.
A kind of turncoat within that, who's more or less taken bribes from the society.
It's still, to me, a little unclear whether he's a well-meaning pawn who's been played, or whether he's a scheming, dark individual that nobody realized. I'm not sure, based on what I know so far.
But either way, he's not a good person to have in charge.
No.
The
insane people now rule the asylum. Yes.
So that's left a mess.
Should we go back to Mercury?
Let's just finish up Mars, because we talked about how Ephraim died, Volsung Fa. The Obsidians actually announced through Volsung Fa that they're down to leave under the condition of, Volga, who was Ragnar's daughter, heir kind of thing, we're taking her with. And Volga willingly does go. And Lyria eventually says, I'm going to chase after her. Somehow, we're going to get her back. But things do kind of settle, not in a good way, but definitely in a calmer looking way.
The Obsidians out of the issue for the moment. That is a good resolution.
It's problematic of like, okay, but what are they going to go off and go do?
Whatever they think is best for the Obsidians. Yeah.
But it's not as bad of a situation as we just left Virginia and Severo in.
Right.
Now we can go to Mercury.
So Mercury. So we've got this situation with, the remaining forces with Darrow trapped in a city, holding off, able through technology to hold off those who are trying to get to them. But after a daring escape, Alexander returns
Woo!
with one other survivor.
Woo!
The person who's claiming to be, it's Lysander, but nobody knows it's Lysander. And by the time they get there, Lysander's the only one who is actually cognizant. Alexander is out cold. Everyone else was killed in the escape. So they don't, Darrow's people, they don't know to trust this guy. He's just thrown in a cell for now until it can be confirmed who he is and what he is and all that. Long story short, he manages to convince people mostly that he's safe and not a problem, and then brings it all down from the inside.
Yeah,
Thanks
Glarastes
to
apparently
Clarastes.
recognizes him through it all from way back and ultimately goes, this new society was problematic and I kind of betrayed them, but this new republic doesn't keep its promises. They brought the storm gods too high. That's problematic. I'm a loon man through and through. He vouches
Well,
for
and he vouched because also Lysander, the fake name he gave for himself, we learn was a fake identity that had been created
it
and
was
and
real.
put about here in key places on Mercury in case it would ever be needed.
A
I
real
mean, that
fake.
is long range thinking here, to plan for something like that. So Clarastes knew the name. He knew what that meant and immediately goes into vouching for him. And there's a whole backstory for this name and everything.
And Lysander's going to bring about basically the fall of Mercury so that Atalantia and forces can come in and crush Darrow and all their people. But it ends up becoming personal and sad because Alexander has woken up. Alexander and Rona had a will they won't they thing for a while, and it was like
Mm-hmm.
I hate you, but not really. It's just because I'm attracted to
The
you,
sexual tension was happening. You could feel it. The sparks are
and they
flying.
kind of finally are like, it's a will they, not a won't they, and they together go to like thank Lysander and talk to him right when Lysander's wanting to set shit off.
And while they're doing that, Darrow discovers it's Lysander.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember exactly whether it was some tests that came through or something, but they finally were able to put the connection together. That dude's Lysander, and he sends it as a private message into the earpieces of both Alexander and Rona to just, okay, the person you're talking to is Lysander. Stall him until we can get to you. And this is where that mind's eye comes back in again.
Lysander
That
figures it out.
he is observant enough that he's able to just see the subtlest of differences in the way they're relating to him and draws the correct conclusion.
And he more or less incapacitates Rona, and then he and Alexander are potentially having a square off, and Alexander's like, be honorable with Straw Blade, we'll fight. And Alexander shoots him.
Yeah, that was a dirtbag move. There's no honor in that, but he's like, doesn't matter.
And
I have a cause. He's doing a Darrow move. I have to
that's
do
the
what
thing.
has to be done.
He shows more Darrow, more Atlas, more Octavia in this than he does the Cassius, who spent this past decade trying to put it
He's turned
into
his
him.
back on what Cassius taught him. Yeah.
And there's a certain element of like, he personally does feel a little bad. He's like, it's not the honorable thing. I know that. But it's the necessary thing for the cause, for the society, if it's ever going to be good again.
And again, it is like Darrow. Darrow has done many things out of necessity for the cause that he felt bad about. He'd rather not have done, but the demands, the needs of the movement required it.
Things go very badly for Darrow and crew. Darrow himself almost dies, loses his razor that was a gift from Mustang kind of thing. The only thing that ends up saving Darrow and some of the people is an
Deus Ex
11th.
Cassius.
Yeah, it's an 11th hour. Cassius is not dead.
He's not dead.
Shows up, and it's more of just a we're not fighting this forever. Get in and we're getting out.
Now, there was a hint of it a little earlier in the book where it's referenced, I forget who exactly says it, but that they'd sent someone else to Mercury to help. And when that was said, I was like, yep, Cassius is still alive. So I was not surprised to see Cassius show up. The way they had him killed earlier, I'm like, no, he's not dead. We would have seen a body. We would know he's dead. He's not dead.
We get a fun thing where basically Cassius and his ship with his pilot that has been with Lysander for so long come in refitted with better stealth tech and funky
Cloak
things, and it's like,
technology, yeah.
where is this coming from? And it's like, well, we know some people who are in some R&D things. Ed Darrow, very injured.
Spooked
One of his
away.
arms is not going to work very well without like seeing a carver needing Mickey to
Yep.
work on it again, kind of thing. But he's out, and so are some of the people with him.
Just a small handful, really. Most end up impaled.
Because that's what Atlas does.
That's what he does.
And Lysander,
And basically, they've lost Mercury.
Lysander makes a great play to more or less put this power dynamic in a, I'm not just claiming it for me, because that would be a great way to put a target on my back for Atalantia. So we're going to claim it, but we're also going to give it to her, and then we're going to link things together moving forward.
Let me back us up a moment. I know where you're going here.
Yeah.
But Lysander has been carefully playing the political game here, trying not to put himself in a position where Atalantia is going to have to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, trying to still be a valid resource and someone who can influence where things go to rebuild the society. And yet, he's being tripped up by those around him who want to lift him up as the heir, want to start supporting him. He's got his own gray cadre back who are committed to Loon. They were provided by the blank knight. Which one? What was her? What? The Love Knight. Thank you. So the Love Knight. Now, the Love Knight gets taken out by Darrow through poison.
Yeah, she's going to die of her wounds and poisons and stuff. She's going to die, not she's dead.
But so there's these various manipulations that have been going on to basically force Lysander into the position of claiming his rights and becoming the heir. And now he's got to do something drastic to make sure that doesn't get him killed. And so he does what?
He basically goes, hey, Atalantia, let's get married.
At the ceremony where he knows, again, his mind's eye, wow, that focus thing. Okay,
yeah.
Where he can literally see very clearly,
like, so there's a sniper.
You're about to kill me. I know this is how this works. And she's like, yeah, absolutely. As they're all smiling and waving at the people. And that's where he offers
basically it's like,
this deal.
You have the power and the might here, but I have the heart of the people. And the name, the legitimacy. We put these things together, we can actually build upon this, not just have war.
And she decides, yes, let's do that. And it's great. So when you get the honor, don't take my hand. So now you know what the signal was.
Yeah.
When I raise his hand, blow his head off.
Which is it's a good thing. But in the back of Lysander's mind, he has the last thing that the Love Knight told him. That Atalantia, at his own grandmother's order, is responsible for the death of his parents.
Yeah. So now he's shagging with the killer of his mom. It's great. Despite that, he still has a big picture vision of, I need to do what it's going to take to restore the society. So he makes a side deal right at the end with Apollonius.
Who we didn't talk about in this book yet, but we did hint that there was another person who starts learning the mind's eye. It's because Apollonius is sneaking around following Lysander through the desert.
Yep.
And it's like, teach me.
And he's now, Lysander is saying, hey, all right, now we'll kind of continue this. I'm going to support your play. Let's be allies. It has to be on the down low right now. And that's going to go on to play out some more in the next book. But he's maneuvering.
That's more or less where we leave things. And there really was a sense at the end of this book where it's like, there are a lot of questions and where does this go and uncertain things, but it's not like there are any super, super, super cliffhangers beyond we want to know where this goes next.
Oh, there's one.
Well,
Several.
it's more just a completely unanswered question, like it's not addressed.
But it's a cliffhanger. Severo's screwed somewhere now. And
so with
to be
that,
determined.
most people had to wait like 4 years for the next book on this
Yeah.
one. We didn't, because we started
We
reading
moved
this.
right to the
I
next
started
one.
reading the series basically when Lightbringer came out.
Yeah. So yeah, things to be determined. What's going to happen with Lysander and Atalantia, and how this progresses. Are they going to become a power couple and restore the society, or are they going to be fighting against each other and tearing apart the society? Is this going to lead to a new civil war between their parties? What's going to happen there? What's going to happen with Severo? Okay, what's the result? How about the Jackal, who's still a player somewhere in all of this?
It's like he wasn't doing good, but wasn't enough to kill him. Is he still a player in charge?
What about Darrow? Where does he get taken? Does he get to go home? Is he going somewhere else? What's gonna come of that? And Cassius being back in play, what does this mean? What about, we've got Lyria out there now
chasing after Volga, the Obsidians, but also the thing in her head and pursuing
what's gonna happen with that?
What's the state of the Republic and Mustang? Can she bring back some semblance of order? Where are we going there?
We have a lot of questions, a lot of things in the works. And we'll explore them more in Lightbringer, which I'm still reading. So we'll get to that there.
One. I'm excited for you to finish.
Me too. All right. Well, good book. Again, I gave it 5 stars. I have no issues with Dark Age. It was better than Iron Gold. It stepped the story up. And yeah, at one point I tweeted just a bunch of names and going, really? Yeah, it's just so many people. I didn't say anything about what had happened to any of them. But yeah. And Ulysses, man, again.
Oof.
All right. If you have thoughts on any of this, feel free to leave them in the comment box, and we do respond. We love to hear what you guys are thinking. And show notes has other ways that you can connect with us. Feel free to do so. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.